Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Dan Martell with us again. Dan, thanks for coming back on the show.
Bronson, absolutely my pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me back.
One thing we can always count on is your energy. I love it.
It's a given, man. I just love to to make sure that people know I'm alive and awake.
They do. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you. You're a longtime friend of the show. More importantly, you're a serial entrepreneur with multiple exits. That is rarefied air, which means we should be learning from you. And you're an all-around smart dude, nice dude, and we're just excited to have you back on the show. In fact, your last episode when you came on is one of the most watched episodes on Growth Hacker TV, which is saying something because now we have over 170 episodes, and Dan Martell is right there at the top. So thanks again, man.
Well, that's the bar, man. Let's bring it to the next level.
Let's do it. I think we will. I mean, last time we chatted, we had some good stuff. I recommend people go and watch that one again. Today, I think it's going to be even better. I mean, the stuff we're going to talk about is so important to every entrepreneur. So let's just jump right in. No more preamble. All right. So you've spent the last few years building Clarity.fm. It really took off. After building it, you sold it recently, and now you're kind of on to your next thing. And so let's start, though, with the building of Clarity FM. Real quick, one sentence, what is Clarity?
Clarity is a marketplace for entrepreneurs to get advice from other entrepreneurs to get unstuck.
I love it. I've been on both sides of the Clarity equation. I've had people call me to help get unstuck, and I've called them to get unstuck. So I'm a user on both sides of that marketplace, and it works as advertised. You know, it's simple, it's efficient, it's cost effective, and you get to get some of the brain power of great people. Clarity was a marketplace, right? They're notoriously difficult because you're essentially building two startups at the same time, one for supply, one for demand. What are some of the difficulties that come along with a marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, marketplace is like having twins, right? It's like two babies at the exact same time, and you've got to kind of nurture them forward. The challenges are, like building any startup, but for me, it's understanding the marketplace dynamics, right? So, we made every mistake possible. Just so you know, you said, yeah, Clarity took off. It did, but it was after 9 months of some really, in hindsight, stupid decisions. I mean, we didn't even have search on the marketplace for the first 6 months. In the early days, we let anybody sign up for Clarity and be an expert, which I would not advise anybody do that. You need to build quality control into your supply side. So yeah, we made every mistake, but we were just quick to learn and interact. And what I've learned about building a marketplace is it's like an organism, right? You can't tell two people how they're going to behave. You can just create the features and game mechanics to incentivize them to do the right behavior. So for example, Clarity, getting two people on a phone call at the same time. It sounds simple. It's ridiculously tough. I mean, if you've ever tried to just schedule a friend for a phone call, we had to do that at scale, thousands of calls a day. It was really, understanding the right people to provide the advice, the supply side, and then understanding what's the core customer, what's the value proposition to a person that's willing to invest in that call. And, I'll just give some examples. On the demand side, we realized for Clarity anyways, it was anybody who's ever paid to go to an event, because that's the filter of saying, I understand the value of being around people. I understand the value of information to grow my business, and I've invested in that myself. And Clarity was all of a sudden an opportunity for you to talk with those speakers on stage without having to wait for the event, without the huge financial investment of travel and accommodations, and then not risking the chance you may not even talk to that expert. So I think when people think about building a marketplace, they need to zero in exactly on who their core customer is on the demand side, because that'll inform the product, it'll inform the supply side, it'll inform all strategic decisions in your startup. So I would say, number one, figure out who your demand is and figure out how to get in front of them. Yeah,
see, I love that, because I think with a marketplace, it can serve so many people that sometimes you might want to skip over the let's define the customer point, because I think, well, it's a marketplace. I mean, anybody technically could get value from it because it's a marketplace. There's so many things on it.
Well, I mean, especially like Clarity was a phone marketplace. So we had people going, oh, you should have doctors on there, psychiatrists. I mean, you name it, parents, parenting advice. And I'm like, wow, you're right. The platform can support all that. but we needed to focus exclusively on a core customer. And we chose initially tech entrepreneurs and marketing as a category, and then we expanded it from there. So that's another, probably the second biggest piece of advice is focus on a category or a specific offering and really dial that in, and then use the bowling pin strategy to go to the second and third logical market, and then eventually blow it out to now we have 5,000 categories. But in the early days we had 1, then 3, then 5.
Never heard that, the bowling pin strategy. I'm going to use that again. I'm going to rip that one off.
Take it.
I love it. So what's more important, supply or demand? I've heard both from people that built marketplaces. What do you think?
Here's the way I look at it. There's two types of marketplaces. There's one, and some people would argue the second is not a true marketplace. There's one where there's none at the price for the supply. So that would be an example like Uber, maybe Postmates, Exec back in the day. There's been a lot of other marketplaces where essentially they don't own the staff, but they still connect people together. TaskRabbit, to a certain degree, they have some fixed price type of initiatives. Whereas you have open marketplaces, even Fiverr, I would say, is that kind of marketplace because they're $5 a task. And then you have other things like Upwork, Clarity, Airbnb, where the supply side sets their price. So where the supply side sets their price, it's demand. Where you set the price, it's supply. And just because the dynamics are different in what you're trying to accomplish. If you're going to a market and saying, look, if you want to hire somebody to clean your house and it's $20 a visit, we have the best people and they'll be there on time. You're setting the expectations, you're owning that relationship and the brand that goes with it. So you really need to dial in the experience for the user. Whereas if you're representing kind of an offering like Upwork or Clarity, you do want to own the quality of the supply, but the true challenge to validate or to figure out early is demand, because that is going to be the hardest thing to get. Going to the supply side, when we were building Clarity, we grew to over 50,000 experts in 16 months. It was easy once we figured out where to find them. We can talk about that story because we were saying, do you want to make more money? Like, who says no to that?
Exactly.
It's like, yes, customers want more money. So we just had to figure out the right people that are willing to pay for that investment.
Yeah, see, I love that answer. I never thought about that the more you own the experience, the more it's on you to vet the supply side to make it a great experience. The more you're not vetting them, the more you're not owning it, the more you're going to have to focus on demand, because that's where the value is. I never thought about it, but intuitively it makes so much sense. All right, so let's get into it. How'd you get 50,000 experts? What was that like?
I teach a process called growth engines, and it's all about the demand, marketing, sales conversion, and then customer success. And that engine is whenever I work with an entrepreneur, or I've built companies myself, it's always trying to figure out how do you make that flywheel turn. And the key, especially because we figured out the demand side, we needed to get the supply side ramped up, was asking ourselves where do people, and I'll ask you the question and see what kind of answers, where do people that have authority, the topic, what are networks that you would assume that you would go source from to find those people? And that's a question to you and your audience.
Yeah, I would guess.
What are some of those networks that you would think of?
I would guess Quora. I would guess go to find people that have their own blogs, things like that. LinkedIn. Yeah.
Blogs, LinkedIn, Quora, etc. And here's the challenge with those, and we tried all of them, was that they're very good at not giving us any information to actually reach out to those people. LinkedIn is notorious. You want to try to scrape LinkedIn, good luck. That's their core business. They've figured out how to lock that down better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Quora was a little easier to identify people, but there was no information that we could use to reach out to them. And really, again, my growth engine process is about just testing and iterating. Eventually, we found a channel, and when I tell it to you guys, it'll seem very obvious. And we scaled it from there, and it was SlideShare, because we could search any topic. So when people posted a question on Clarity, we could search the topic for the top slides. We knew that they were an expert because those slides got views. Then on the last slide of every presentation was their contact information. So
it's beautiful.
In Manila, I know, right? You hear it and you're like, of course. But that's all about, what I call OPN, other people's networks. How can you leverage for distribution, especially if you're trying to scale? Every startup from Instagram to Dropbox to you name it, leverage. Uber used events. So you may not know this, but Travis Kalanick, the founder and CEO, is an investor in my previous company, Flowtown, was one of my mentors. And early days, I watched how he leveraged event organizers in every city that they deployed to give them for the $20 ride credits, right? Again, that was an OPN. Other people's networks, they leverage that to scale. We use SlideShare manually at first, and this is one of my beliefs in building product. You manually do it to learn it, to see if it works, and then you productize it or operationalize it if it works, and then you scale it. And that's what we did. We built a tool called Bonjour that automated this whole process.
I like that, Bonjour. A way to say hello to people.
It's a Bonjour, right? It's hello. Do you want money? Like,
exactly. Yeah. So I'm interested in this because on Clarity you put up a Q&A style kind of Quora feature. I interacted with it. I answered some questions, and I actually got calls, I think, because I did answers on there, and then they would get promoted in different ways. Was that a good driver of traffic for you guys? Was that a win?
It was our third. It was in the top three. It was right behind experts widgets. So we incentivize our experts to put their widgets on their different blogs. That was obviously qualified traffic if it was on their Twitter profile or whatever. But we had a core metric inside of Clarity called EDS, expert driven sign up. Our core, we tried to do paid acquisition. It didn't work because of the margins that we were taking didn't support a paid acquisition strategy. So we knew that it would have to be some aspect of SEO or inbound or word of mouth. So we just optimized the crap out of EDS, expert-driven sign-up. So we asked ourselves, what are ways we can get our experts to produce content or promote themselves to get new demand? And if they came in through your blog widget, we knew that we'd own them as a customer, and then we could upsell or promote other experts that would round out that advice. So if you came in for SEO advice, well, maybe you needed advice on business development. So there's like logical categories and of information that we could promote if they came in and did a call. And the Q&A Clarity Answers was really just that. It was SEO and also solving the problem for our demand side, which is I don't know who I should reach out to. Sure, I could search, but the challenge with search is when you have, and this is a problem with a marketplace where you have unlimited supply or you don't set the price, is I don't know if this guy's worth that price, and this guy looks good, but he's a different price, and it's analysis paralysis. So what we allowed new members to do is just publish a question, have a bunch of experts answer it, and then they could see which one they felt resonated the best, and then they would click through and call them. So experts loved it because they got more calls. New members or new customers loved it because they got to filter easier, and then we loved it because it would create killer SEO. I mean, Q&A is the ultimate SEO content, and we just felt like we had a different twist. Have to do calls, have to, it's not just anybody that can answer questions on Clarity Answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was 2 and 3, the widget from the experts and the Q&A, the Clarity Answers. What was number 1?
We have a blog.clarity.fm, and it was, again, using the experts contributed content to build with where we built a blog get 250,000 uniques a month in the first 2 years, and it was our primary driver of traffic. Clarity was the widgets and kind of having our experts link up their profiles. Then it was the Clarity Answers SEO, and then it was the blog, which again was a form of SEO. Sure. But it was contributed by all the experts.
Yeah, and so you recently, somewhat recently, exited Clarity FM. You sold it to startups.co. Did they seek you out, or did you seek them out? Because I've heard people say,
it's actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
Companies aren't bought.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, no. And I've been fortunate enough to have gone through the process 3 times now. Clarity was the third, and have probably helped 50 plus other entrepreneurs either through investments I've done or just Clarity calls, walk them through that process. Startups was an interesting one because we were in process, and we had talked to companies. They always make us sign an NDA, but you can imagine some of the companies that we were a logical fit for.
Sure.
I may have mentioned one already on this interview, but we were talking with those kind of companies, some in New York that are large, what's called an expert network. And we're probably pretty far down the process, and all of a sudden, Will, the founder of Startups Co., calls me just to catch up, just to talk. And we've known each other for a while, and he's like, "What's new?" And I was like, "Well, keep it between us, but we're actually in process." And he started thinking, he's like, really? Because he was calling me for advice on how to build a Q&A product, right, for their community. And because we had built Clarity Answers. And I was like, well, obviously we have that capability. And he just said briefly, would you even entertain the, us being an option? And I said, well, you're going to have to make a decision quickly because we're in process. But totally, I mean, Will's one of the best entrepreneurs out there, and what he's created so far with Startups.co is incredible. I mean, prior to acquiring Clarity, he bought 3 other companies, LaunchRock, etc. Just bought Zirtual, which a lot of people found, but he actually brought that back to life. They have 110 staff. He's an incredible entrepreneur. And this is what got me over. And if you ever hear these words from a potential acquirer, you can just, thank them for it. But he said, I don't expect you to stay more than a day.
So no vesting.
I was like, well done, sir. Well done. Yeah. Essentially, I mean, the cool thing about building a marketplace is it's a flywheel. I mean, it continues to grow 10% every month. It's just, the way the marketplace works. And we had a great team that went over, but, he just said, look, stay on as a strategic advisor for 12 months so that I feel like I have some coverage and I can always call you, which he could anyways.
Sure.
I cared more about making sure that the community found the right fit, because half of the other opportunities we were looking at, they were going to essentially shut the core product down and integrate the technology into their system, which I wasn't too keen on. Obviously, I got to entertain that option as a venture-backed company. That's kind of our responsibility as an entrepreneur. But that one was the best of all worlds because it's found a great home. It continues to grow. It continues to be available. I keep using it. I mean, I've done over 1,300 Clarity calls.
Wow.
And because of their vision for their product roadmap, they just integrated all of Clarity Answers into their other properties, and Clarity will be the call connectivity portion of advice on the back of the other SaaS product, which was actually a vision we had that they were going to execute internally. So it's awesome. Now, for your audience, they're probably worried about, like, how do I make the bad decision? What are the things I should negotiate? Number one, you should make sure you understand where you're going. And you want to talk to people that have either been acquired by that company or try to spend as much time as you can prior to actually signing off on the deal so that you get for their culture. Because trust me, the previous exit, Flowtown, to Demandforce was not a positive experience for me. I lasted 2 months. And I had a 1-year earn out, so I didn't have to stay that much longer. I just couldn't do it. Plus, I came up with the idea for Clarity, and I'm just too much of an entrepreneur not to follow my ideas. But yeah, I mean, exiting is always a challenge because you're torn between wanting to continue to grow, but if you have investors, you have a financial responsibility to them and to your team to get the best outcome and as fast as you can, right? It's not cool to spend 20 years building the company.
Agreed. Is it hard to let go even though they're keeping the core product together, they're letting people continue to use it? Is it still hard to be like, okay, I'm now an advisor, and after that, I'm nothing, even though it was my baby,
Yeah, I'll say when I sold my first company, Spirit, that was probably the one that hit me the most. I spent 4 years building this company. It was a consulting company with some technology we had built. And, I still remember the morning I woke up and realized that nobody cared if I got out of bed. And it sounds crazy, but when you work 100 hours a week for 4 years and we grew it to 30 employees, millions of revenues, it was my identity. It was who I am. And all of a sudden I realized I didn't have that. Now, yeah, I had money in the bank, but it was like, I actually got into a mini depression. Like it was, I didn't even know it at the time. I was just like, what's going on? Because like I'd get these anxiety attacks, and I went and ended up talking to a guy, friend of mine, and he's like, yeah, man, you're having anxiety. It was almost what he called postpartum, like essentially, the loss of a child or something like that. Not to that degree, obviously, I wouldn't put it in that same light, but it was putting your soul and your identity into something and then having that gone. So what did I do differently with Flowtown? I made sure that I never attach my self-worth to my business. And that's probably the best advice that I give entrepreneurs all the time is who you are and the success of your business are two separate things. Do not intertwine them. And that was kind of what's helped me, I guess, with Clarity as well. Just realize, like, even from the beginning when I built this, like, I don't own it. And Clarity was even more that because it was a community. It was a marketplace. Like, if all my experts decided that I don't like Clarity anymore, then I didn't have a product, which is a really scary thing, but also a very honest and focusing kind of commitment. So that was a lot easier. Spheric was the worst. Flowtown was a lot easier, and then Clarity is probably the easiest. Also because I understood better how to choose the right person to kind of support it and move it along further.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, like you said, being the serial entrepreneur you are, you couldn't even wait, the extra 10 months to get your earn out. So I know, you sell Clarity, you're on to the next one, as Jay-Z would say. So
on to the next one.
On to the next one. So what is the next one for you? And this is actually, I think, pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, I will say this. I told my wife, when I started Clarity, my wife was pregnant, and then we had my second boy 11 months apart. So, I built a backpack company. She built her company. It's just pretty crazy. While we had 2 kids, and we moved, and we had the opportunity to build our dream, which is kind of cool. I should do that, because I remember talking to a friend. She said, "Do you realize the 3 things that will stress you the crap out are changing locations, moving, a new job," so we started new companies, "and having a kid in your family, birth of a child."
Yeah. And
we had that times 2. So I told her after that experience I wouldn't do anything for a year. I lasted 6 months, and I really tried. I went to San Diego. We rented a house on the beach. It was awesome. But, I just kept getting inspired by people out there really contributing and giving back to the world, like you're doing with the podcast. And I had all these friends, and I never did that. I did it for my companies. I had a blog for my company. I did social media and marketing and stuff. But I just decided one day to shoot videos for my kids, honestly. Initially, it was if something happened to me in 3 or 4 years, and I didn't document some of those 1,300 Clarity calls, where would they learn about my values and my beliefs and my approach to building businesses? My kids will be entrepreneurs. That's just this kind of how I see it. And started with the YouTube channel, and then 4 months after that, I realized that I wanted to serve even more, and I launched an online program called Idea to Exit, which was everything I've ever learned about starting a company, scaling it, and eventually exiting it. I launched that just in my small email list. That did incredibly well, which then parlayed into a live event I did in San Francisco last November, which I put that live event up there with meeting my wife, the birth of my kids, in that live event. And that might sound crazy because I've been fortunate to have some pretty cool, experiences in my life, like selling companies. But there was something that happened in that room with those entrepreneurs. There's 50 entrepreneurs from around the world that came to that. And just my ability to connect with them and to give them 110% and to share openly and just really care on a level that doesn't happen on video, on YouTube, on social media. So I decided to do that at the biggest level. So pretty much starting January 1st, I went all in. That was just kind of an experiment last year. And now we're relaunching the program with a bunch of great partners. And I just want to serve as many people as I can. So the goal is 1 million people in the next 10 years.
That's
but
awesome.
One-on-one, in person, through my videos, through the live event, through the course.
Yeah. And the great thing about learning Idea to Exit from someone like you is you can do a search for those topics. You can go to Udemy, but who's the educator, right? Is it someone who really knows how to exit? When you've done it 3 times, you know the ins and outs of it, you know the ups and downs of it, you know the ideas you didn't decide to execute on and the ones you did chase after and why. You've actually been through it from beginning to end 3 times, not even including the false starts and the mishaps, And so
many of those.
Exactly. We all have a ton of them. And so I think it's just the quality of the educator is so important because anyone, or not anyone, but a lot of people can put together a slick package, speak well on stage, and have no clue what they're talking about. Right? It happens all the time. And so I think that's why it's cool that you're doing what you are.
I really learned the value of that. Yeah, really I learned that firsthand with Clarity, right? So the messenger matters more than the message. And what I mean is if you have 2 people say the exact same words or sentences, depending on the context of who the person, it's not good or bad. I'm not saying that, I'm better than somebody else. It's just somebody will resonate with my story and my approach and not with somebody else. So yeah, I think you're right. The messenger matters a lot when you're trying to learn. I know it has for me over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, we're actually one of the partners that you're going to be working with because I want our audience to get access to what you're doing. And I'm going to read off 3 of the titles of what you're going to be teaching to our audience just to get them excited for when we email them more details about it. The first one is no-cost product development and true customer validation. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, we all need product development to do it no or low cost and actually get it validated is amazing. The second one is marketing growth engines and funding your dream. So you already mentioned marketing growth engines earlier, kind of the three pieces of that. I would love personally to dig in deeper on that one. So I'm excited to hear that. Funding your dream. You've raised VC money 3 times now. You know what they want to hear and what kind of business you need to be a part of to actually make that happen. And then the third one is how to engineer your big money exit. So you really do take from idea to exit and kind of all the big milestones in between there.
Yeah, I mean, my goal in that mini course was really just to take, again, those 1,300 clarity calls, the thousands of talks I've given around the world, and just kind of build frameworks that people can understand. Because I believe there's an unlimited amount of content out there. You can go on Core, you can Google blog posts, you can watch talks at events, but what's lacking is the context, right? So what I've done is I sat down, and it took me 6 months to build out the curriculum for this program and these videos, and it was really just say, what do I believe about this topic, and what are things that are true, and what are some of the best practices that I've had that I've seen repeated by other people, so I know that it's repeatable, that other people get the same results. And then I took that information, I created diagrams and frameworks. So if you're familiar with the Lean Startup, that's one framework. Essentially, everything I teach has its own framework. So for example, the no-cost product development, I use a framework called clickable prototypes. So I actually teach people how I did it, and I give you in the mini course, I'm going to give you a download to my clickable prototype that we use at Clarity for one feature. And we always built these prototypes even after we raised money. We raised 1.6 million, and it's a great way for you to not just build a landing page. People are like, oh, build a landing page and send traffic there. That's not validation. To me, it's you simulate the product using a clickable prototype. It takes you 2 hours to build. I'll give you the frameworks and the UI kits, and use Keynote, which is easy. Just click, click, click. And then you present that to a customer, and you get early buy-in, right? And what happens is if you get a clickable prototype built that actually walks people through exactly how your solution is going to work, you show that to a customer, they go, wow, this guy's serious, it's legit, and you get them to buy in. I call that an EAP, an early adopter program. You get them a discount, but you do get paid. And you take those two things, then you go to a team of people that are world-class. If you're not technical, and you go to an engineer meetup, and again, I share the different places you would go to find those people, and you say, look, I've reduced the risk of the market being there because I already got pre-orders. Here's the product that I need built because I've wireframed it, or I created this clickable prototype. Engineers, the only thing that they want is to not build something nobody uses. That's it. That is they don't even care about the money. They just don't want to work on something that nobody's going to use. So if you come to them with the product and the customers, then you've de-risked the opportunity. That's how the bonus is you build a great team. So that I'm going to cover in detail in the first video.
That's awesome. And I mean, I can't even imagine what, all the other stuff that's going to be kind of packed in there. So I'm excited, to learn from it personally. I'm excited that I get to bring it to our audience here, and that you were willing to reach out to us to really share that info with them. Dan, like always, amazing, time with you, amazing episode. And just thanks again for coming on Growth Hacker TV.
I really appreciate it, Brenton. If anybody's interested, they can go to idea2exitonline.com to get access to those videos. They're not launched yet, or it depends when they watch this. But that's the place to get it. It's a free mini course. And again, I just want to serve as many people as I can. So thanks for helping me get the message out.
Absolutely. All right. Talk soon.